Welcome to today's Google Hangout, and I'd like to start by thanking Tincata Fabrics. Tincata goes into everything that keeps us safe. Right, PJ?
That's right, Frank. Without the Tincata supporting firefighters across the country and providing materials for all of our turnout gear, we would not be as safe as we are each and every day. And what's important to remember is Tincata goes into every manufacturer. So whether you're wearing Glow, whether you're wearing Morning Pride, whether you're wearing I don't know, any one of the manufacturers out there, Tincata fabrics go into their materials. It's the material that makes all of our turnout gear. So take a look at tincatafabrics.com, see what they have to offer, and check out your turnout gear and see what you're wearing today.
Today, on this Google Hangout, we have a guest, and I'm really proud to introduce him. And I always mispronounce his last name, which I apologize for, but he's somebody who I view personally as a mentor. And when you look at the fire engineering family and you look at quality instructors, one thing I always like to say is, who did you bring along with you? Because often somebody becomes a name in our industry and they're just that standalone guy. The fire service is all about building others. And as my father used to say, the cemetery is filled with indispensable men. So our guest today is somebody who makes other instructors better. He's always willing to lend a helping hand. His name appears first on the masthead of fire engineering. He may be my father, and I'll let PJ continue so I don't slaughter his last name like I always do.
All right, absolutely. But however, we just need two housekeeping things before we get to the good chief here. One is, don't forget, if you have any questions for the chief, Frank or I, hashtag FETalk to join in the conversation. And two, kind of sidestepping a little bit here, but we should mention our good friend Chris Pepler. Chris, if you're watching today, I know you watch a lot of these shows, get a little bit of rest because we're coming down to see you, so we're going to rile up the whole floor. For those of you that aren't aware, Chris is going through a little tough time right now, and you can use some prayers, and get on Facebook, say hello to him, and just tell him you're thinking of him like we are today. So, Chris, we're with you, and get ready. As soon as this is over, we're coming down to harass you. So today we have Chief Anthony Avilo, and we should actually put in almost retired on there, right? Because he's retired from his primary job in North Hudson Regional Fire Department.
He's not retired. He's on his second leg. He's going to be a director of a training academy.
That's why I hate to even say retired. He's probably actually working harder now than what he did before.
He retired from North Hudson Fire Department, Regional Fire Department, so he could spend more time on the fire department.
Well, for those of you that don't know Anthony, you're totally missing out. He's a fire department FDIC instructor. He's Instructor of the Year award. He's into his third or fourth edition now of Fireground Strategies. We're going to talk about. I just happened to grab the second edition off my book. Oh, that's a good shot. Blocks Frank right out of the shot there, right?
Yeah, look at that.
The second edition today. There's not too many hardcover textbooks in the fire service like this out there, and we
third edition.
Have that guest on today. So, Chief, welcome. And look, he's holding up the newest cover of the book.
That's the third edition. Thanks, PJ. Thanks, Frank. Always great to talk to you guys. And Pep, if you are listening in, man, you know we're pulling for you, brother, and you know, love you. You know, you guys talk about the instructor thing, but I have to say that when you guys sort of came along and I met all you guys, you know, all you guys, Frank, PJ, Pepler, and who else? Frank, PJ, Pepler, who else? Oh, Duffy. Can't forget my grandfather. You guys just sort of rekindled my spirit on the job. Like, you know, you kind of get jaded a little bit, and I was just moving along at a, you know, steady clip in North Hudson, just doing North Hudson stuff. But then when you guys contacted me to do the tactical perspectives, it just sort of like, you know, lit the spark that, you know, that sort of has been carrying me now, you know, and you know, make no mistake about it, you know, that cadre of guys from Connecticut are just, you know, probably the best all-around, like, all-star team in the fire service. Just, you know, that's just my feeling. That's one guy's opinion.
One guy from
Jersey. One guy from Jersey.
Well, thanks, Chief.
Yeah, no problem, man. So, we're hanging out now.
We're hanging out. This is what it's all about. And, you know, Chief, Frank and I come on every, you know, once a month, and this fourth Wednesday of the month, and our overriding topic is, you know, health and safety and incident safety. So we try to focus our conversations around that. As you know, because we talked earlier today, we have no script. We have no topics. You know, occasionally we'll bring a guest on for a specific topic.
Mhm.
But we have an open slate today because there's nothing better than you and I and Frank just hanging out, talking. So we want to talk about some operational stuff. I'd like to hear about the newest edition of the book also. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the newest edition of the book and what you have going on there. But also, I think the listeners today, those watching the show and those that are going to watch this, you know, in the many weeks to come, want to know and hear from you what you're actually doing. A lot of them know that you retired from North Hudson, but I know you have a lot of good things going on down there in Jersey right now. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you have going on for yourself, talk a little bit about your book, and then we'll get to some operational safety things that you have listed in your Fireground Strategies book.
Okay, let's see. Where do we start? First off, my voice is a little shot because I saw Black Sabbath last night. So rock on, baby.
I'll be proud of you.
Rock the F on, man. Let's see. Right now I'm at New Jersey City University where I'm the chair of fire science. I was offered and accepted the job of the director of the Monmouth County Fire Academy. Monmouth County is a very big county in New Jersey. Some couple of career departments down there, mostly volunteer, but you know, some great firefighters. I'm really looking forward to doing that. It's, you know, I love the university. I love to do the teaching. And the people here, Professor Malley and, you know, Professor Von Ness and Professor Boyd, they just, you know, really treated me well. But you know, the academy's closer to my house. It's like an offer I couldn't refuse, you know. So I'm going to be teaching down there and running that academy. But in July and August, I've pretty much been running both. So it's been a little crazy. September 1, I start there. I'm still an adjunct for the university and write curriculum for them, hopefully. You know, we're the fire marshal down there in Monmouth, Kevin Stout, is he's new, very progressive. So we're going to be doing some things that I think are going to benefit all the firefighters in Monmouth County, maybe and further. And it's going to be real interesting. We're going to, you know, maybe try and put together an incident management team. There's a bunch of other things which, you know, might allow me to get back onto the fireground a little bit and, you know, throw my 2 cents in about people's chin straps, right?
Well, while you were the guy that wrote the Fireground Strategies book, you stress all the time attention to detail. And when you miss the small things, it's usually the small things that culminate in that injury or the line of duty death. So you mentioned chin straps. Let's just hit upon that quickly as one of those drift areas where we fail with PPE.
Well, you know, I was going to wear the hat you guys gave me at the FDIC. They gave me a baseball hat with a chin strap on it. You know, I've seen when you let those little things go, oftentimes it blossoms into the unintended consequences of those type of things. And it's not just not wearing a chin strap. It's sort of the attitude of, you know, safety. You know, it's the attitude of what we need to do on the fireground to survive. And I always say, look, if you can't get that part right, what else are you going to do wrong? You know, so you wind up with a lot of deviation amplification. You know, you let one guy get away with it, then in the next run 2 guys are getting away with it. The next run another guy's not wearing his coat. You know, it just like tumbles away, and then it's harder to get back. You know, but I've seen people damaged pretty badly for not wearing them, and I've also seen people that survived the experience wearing them. You know, one of my captains, I talk about him in the book, they were up on the floor above the fire, and they wound up getting trapped up there because there were some issues that went on with command that was, I was on vacation that day, someone else was running a fire, and it just, some of our policies were not followed, and they got trapped upstairs. 2 things saved their life. One, they had closed the door to the fire apartment when they went in. Extremely important. They were going on a it was not a vent to isolate search. It was just sort of an above the fire search. Fire was in the cellar, and when the companies pulled out, the fire roared up the stairs. And luckily for them, that door was closed. But they were working their way towards the rear of the building. And then the second lesson comes in: if you can't see your feet, you better crawl, because the captain tripped over a footstool and crashed right through a window into a shaft. Landed about 10 feet down on his head. Helmet cracked in half on impact, and he survived. He's off the job now. He was a great captain, great rescue captain by the name of Richard Braris, and he survived, but he's off the job with neck injuries and that. But he would not have survived. So when that happened, like my shift was look, you don't want to wear your chin strap when you're on my shift. Don't work here or ask for a transfer. And when that occurred, I went to the chief of department and I said, listen, you have to enforce this gear policy across the department. It's just, you can't ignore this. And he was very proactive, Brian McEldowney. And he put it in place. Well, he said, well, we need to write that. And I already had it written. I said, well, here it is. And he put it in place. And, to this day, I'm not sure if it's, I've been gone a year and a half, but you look at pictures of North Hudson on a fireground, you see people in full gear. You see all chiefs geared up. And, what's interesting is you're starting to see it in other places now. For instance, FDNY. You look at pictures of FDNY, and it's such a big department, but you look at pictures, there's a lot more gear discipline there than there's ever been, because I think that they get it, and they get it collectively, which is what you really need to do in a big department like that. North Hudson's only 300 guys, but again, if you don't get something collectively as a department, it's very hard to sort of put some of those things in place and enforce them, because it might as well be written on toilet paper if you're not going to enforce it, So that's my chin strap story.
And it goes beyond chin straps. It goes with the hood, the gloves. I see the departments across the country, including New Haven, doing a much better job with the waist straps now. That was a big problem. And a lot of it comes in with buy-in from the chief officers. The fish rots from the head down. If the chief's on scene and we're using division officers now and he's got his waist strap unbuckled, you're just sending the wrong message to everybody, and you're making the job of the company officers that much harder. You got to set the example as the chief.
And it starts in training. We can't expect to be spending our time on the fireground as chief officers, making sure guys have their chin straps on, and their gloves on, and their waist straps in place to where they're supposed to. So it comes down to getting them up front, getting it done in training. So not only do they realize they have to do these things, but also the why. And I think that's where we're at with a lot of the fire service now, is we have a different fire service than what it was when I came up. And when you came up, I know when Frank started, you were told to do something, you said yes, sir, and you did it. There was not the, well, why do I have to do this, and why am I doing this? And we have a lot of that now. So when we're training our new recruits, we have to tell them not only how to fasten their waist strap and how to do their chin strap, but also why, and show them, explain to them what's going to happen or what could happen. And the simple thing, nobody wants to work harder. And the waist strap comes down to not only for your safety so you don't get hung up, but also wear the way it's supposed to, and it allows you to work longer, allows you to have a little bit more drive inside the building, and you're not carrying all that weight in your shoulders if you wear it right. So it comes down to doing taking care of the little things in training and educating our members up front on why we do some of the things that we do.
Well, you hit it right on the head there, PJ, too. Why? If you don't know why, if you can't explain why, well, maybe you're not the best guy for the position of the guy telling them to do certain things, But you're absolutely right. These things start way before the fireground. Because if you ever got to address this stuff on a fireground, it's just way too late. You don't have the time to deal with that type of nonsense, But where I always found, and I kind of learned this sort of by looking at a couple of really bad fires that we had. What I learned is if you are not taking care of business when nothing's showing, you don't have a dress rehearsal mentality on your department, if everybody's not going through the motions of shaking the building down, making proper reports, apparatus positioning, gear in place, SOPs in place, you're not doing that when nothing's showing, you will never do it when there's a fire, ever. And nothing showing environment is the perfect time to sort of troubleshoot your fireground. We do it one time. I got this from Ed Hatfield. We can't just stop in the middle of a street in North Hudson and raise the aerial, because there'll be a mayor getting called like 5 minutes later. So you know what? You're in a nothing showing environment. How do they know we don't need to raise the aerial? It's like, okay, hey, get the probie over here, have them raise the stick to the roof. Or I want a dry line stretched into this building. Just get it upstairs. Like these are the kind of things that you can do out in the field that nobody's going to question that. Because you got the block. And you don't stay there too long, but you get some work done that maybe, you're at a training tower, so they throw the aerial to the training tower or the firehouse day in and day out, and they know exactly how long it takes. But if you're doing it out in the field, and you got this dress rehearsal mentality, you know, the live game time stuff, you know, is a little more, is a little better, you know, for you. You don't have to have so much stress in that case.
One of the things that I've seen drive me crazy, you go to that call, that food on the stove call, and you'd have a couple of chauffeurs standing in the front of the truck discussing, oh, do you think I could get this or not? Do you think I could stick the building? Do you think the ladder would reach? How about you throw the ladder up?
Yeah.
We just endangered the public and ourselves responding lights and sirens. We put on all our gear to get there, and then as soon as you get there, you're like, oh, well, it's nothing. No, it's not nothing. Create that muscle memory. And I've had a couple good sticks in my career where people came up and said, wow, I can't believe you got that. Without them knowing that, I stuck that building 4 times going to skills over the years. It was nothing special. It was just that that's also how, as a truck driver and as a new individual, you build the Rolodex in your mind. Even if you stick in another building, what that allows you to do is get your depth perception of saying, okay, boss, I can get this or I can't get it, and we got to go ground ladders. So by playing the part, like you said, go in the dress rehearsal and stick in the building. And I used to block traffic at Yale, and I never had anybody where you're sticking the building and they're stuck in traffic because of the outriggers, where you're just polite. Politeness goes a long way. And just hold on a second, ma'am or sir, we're going to get this ladder down for you in just 1 minute and we'll get you on your way. I've never had any individual, even if they were going to work, complain if you address them, you know, because they'd be like, hey, what's going on? Nothing's going on. I got to get to work. Sir, we're going to get this down for you in 1 minute. I'll have you on your way. Stick it, put it down. You'll make a new friend. Just treat everybody with respect when you're doing operations like that, and you'll find that, you know, it's going to increase the efficiency of your entire department.
You know, and what I've done as a young officer, I've done exactly that, but it being a young officer in a department where the majority of the guys are on the job longer than me, I added a little twist to it. I'd go by the driver, you know, the senior guy, say, man, that'd be a tough building to stick. He goes, yeah, but we can do this. I says, I don't think you could get that roof. I just don't think it's going to happen. And what do you think happened? Oh, I'll show you. And before you know it turned into a little company drill where, and I'd say, yeah, you know what, you're right. Come on, I'll buy ice cream on the way back. Yeah, you know, that would work.
It's okay to be proven wrong once in a while, you know. It makes a human out of you, you know. But you have to be creative in your training and stuff too, to, you know, to keep people interested, you know. Like for instance, the same thing with the aerial, you know. So you don't want to stick a building, you do the aerial, and I'm sure you guys have heard it, with the cone or the milk jug, you know. You tie a milk jug filled with water at the tip of the aerial or a cone, and you know, you put a milk crate or another cone in a parking lot somewhere or up on a building in a roof, and, you know, the aerial operator has to put that milk carton into the milk crate or the cone on top of the cone you have up there. It's just great depth perception. It's moving the aerial around, and, you know, it's just, you know, we have to be more creative in the type of training that we're doing in order to keep people, you know, and you make a competition out of it, you know. You make a competition. We did competitions in North Hudson on my shift on several occasions. You know, we did this knot gauntlet, and we set this whole thing up. We sent like a piece of paper out with the entire thing laid out and what you could do, what you couldn't do. These are the knots you use, and we gave them a month to practice, and then we had company heats, battalion heats, and finally we had a champion at the end. But what happened was it sort of took on a life of its own because we didn't think people were going to buy into it. Then all of a sudden, you know, guys are detailed from battalion to battalion, and, you know, it's in the afternoon, you hit a third battalion out in the air, and all of a sudden someone of the first battalion's up there detailed. He's like, hey, these guys are practicing these knots. You know, so now the next thing you know, they're practicing down in the first battalion, and the second battalion finds out they're all practicing. Now all the chirping starts, you know. By the time this thing took off, you know, it was a really, really cool drill, and everybody bought into it. Everybody bought into it.
Something that Alan Bruni-Sini said in Tulsa, which really resonated, which I thought was great, is he said, we continue to treat recruits like prisoners, and then we expect them to behave differently. And I thought that was brilliant, because if you're a training officer out there, you got to make sure that you let your people know that they can fail without being a failure. And you got to make training fun, because that's how you get a buy-in. And if you're a company officer, and I've seen it around the country where the company officer is the guy that stands here, or girl stands here and has their company do the evolution. No, you're a boss. You got to get your hands dirty. You should be the first one to volunteer. Trust me, I made myself look like a fool more than a couple times volunteering to go first. But if you can laugh at yourself, there's nobody that's perfect in this job. All our skills are perishable, and you need to get your companies to buy into the training that this is fun.
Yes.
One of the things that I recommend for training academy, especially in cities, is we used to do it in New Haven. We'd have training last all day long for a few companies, and we would never get to the whole department. So we started doing like 2-hour skill type drill events where they would have an objective, they would complete the objective, you'd critique it, and then you'd bring down the other companies. And what we found is that firefighters are always going to complain when they're told to go to the training, but they weren't complaining when they got there. They were like, what, this isn't bad, I learned something from it, it's constructive. So we got to get, training's got to be fun.
And not
Got to be fun.
You know, what you did here in New Haven, you know, you'd have that company at the school the entire day going over and over. You bring them in, this is what we're going to do, let's get it done, let's
Get them out.
And go back to the fire service, go back in service, go back to the firehouse, go have lunch, do what you got to do. And I think that worked really well for you here in New Haven.
Yeah, and we're starting to be on the fire.
Little bites, you know. Little bites is best. If you're gonna take them for 8-10 hours, it doesn't work. You know. We used to do. You guys know what the pack tracker is, right?
Yes.
We got the pack tracker. We would go in the buildings and play hide and seek. We would just go in. We'd send a company in. Go in the building any way you want. Set off your pass alarm. Give the mayday. Okay, you guys go in. We just would play hide and seek, and then we would eventually build it to a real RIC operation. But we'd always start out just playing hide and seek. You know. We did this other really cool drill. It was an incident command drill, which can be really boring, you know. So, you all right there, Frank?
Yeah, no, I'm reading. People are tweeting.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's on the computer. So.
Hey, Sonny. So we do this incident command drill, and what we did was it had to all be on air, and it was engine and ladder, and they had to come to the command post. They had to check in, and we set up divisions with the battalion chiefs. And we would send them to specific areas. So, for instance, say the 2 engine companies got the assignment to 2 engines, stretch a 2.5-inch line, get a water supply, and just shoot it into the woods behind the firehouse. And we don't have very many woods in Hudson County, by the way. Our woods is like 2 trees. So they'd be doing that all on air, and the other company would be the ladder. They'd have to ladder the building, go to the roof, and change the saw blade on air with all their equipment. When that was done, we took these big pieces of cardboard and we wrote on them and we cut them up and we gave them, they were puzzles with full gear on air. They had to put these puzzles together and then they had to react to the puzzle. And on the one side it said wrong side, stupid, and on the other side it might say bricks, parapet wall in danger. So their job now was to report that to the division commander with an urgent, and the division commander had to report it to the command post. You know, up on the roof with the ladder company. Heavy fire and cockloft HVAC unit on the roof, and the construction of buildings class 2. So it was all this sort of like, you know, hands-on, all kinds of dexterity stuff, but, you know, and in the wind, it was windy one day, and they're trying to put these puzzles together, and they're blowing all over the place, and they're putting pools on top of them, but it really, it was a, it went further than what we anticipated it would be, you know, as a really, really solid drill, you know.
Anthony, I'd like to ask you a question. What do you call it? For our listeners and viewers that don't know this, our union pushed for 15 years to get the incident command system. We were about 20 years late to the party, and I brought in Anthony Avilo to do his class, which I think is brilliant, on command and divisions, and we kind of adopted in New Haven the fire scope method, where we now use divisions, companies reporting to divisions, the decentralized command, and it's working really, really well. And this also goes back into when you let something occur that shouldn't be occurring, whether it's PPE, hoods, it just tends to grow into becoming a bigger problem. So it becomes habit. It becomes habit. So we had an emergency director who has no emergency role on the fireground. He started just showing up to fire scenes. And then I guess he started responding lights and sirens to fire scenes. And this culminated a couple weeks ago at a 2-alarm fire, heavy gasoline siding on the home, both exposures 12 to 15 feet apart with the siding melting off and on fire. And we had a crews operating with heavy fire over their heads.
I
And
love those fires, by the way.
it's a beautiful, beautiful thing what we can do for the public because the New Haven Fire Department saved both of those houses.
Good.
But so we have a division officer who's the union vice president. He's got 4 companies reporting to him, and they're coordinating their attack on the fire floor. He's got 2 floors he's looking after, and you can hear on the radio transmissions, we got heavy fire over our heads, and all of a sudden, while the division chief is calling command, we have the emergency director, who has a cell phone, break in on the tactical channel to ask for the Red Cross in the middle of this conflagration on Blatchley Avenue with exposures likely to tip off with a report of people trapped. And I'm trying to explain to people how dangerous that is. Can you speak to how dangerous it is when you break down communications and you break down incident command on the fire ground? Because you're an expert at it. Your book is the foregone best book that I've read on fireground strategies. I use it every day at work. Can you kind of hit upon how dangerous this could be?
Yeah, well, it's the guy's freelancing. He's freelancing without even being on the fire department. And what was he, on a cell phone?
No, he has a cell phone where he could have called for the Red Cross on the cell phone.
Okay.
That was his thing. But instead he wanted to be heard on the radio.
Oh, you know what you do at that point? You friggin' take his radio away. Or you take it and you smash it or something, It can't be doing that kind of stuff, but the problem is you get political issues involved. Listen, there's nothing worse than working for 5 mayors. We were regionalized, 5 cities, 5 mayors. Can you imagine? But that's just freelancing, and here's where you talk about, your department is kind of getting it now, so you have this I always talk about united front. It's a united front. The whole department's got to buy into the concept from the head down because the fish rots from the head down, right? So you got this whole united front.
It sounds so much better when you say that.
I like to hear Brandicini say that. But once you get these people from the outside, and you know what? It's no different than mutual aid coming in. Because you look at some departments and they have a pretty good operation going on, but they never share with the mutual aid, and they never meet with the mutual aid. So they come in, and what their nice structure was goes right into the tank. And it's what your thing was just on a very smaller scale, but all it takes is that smaller scale, unwanted transmission to sort of block out a mayday, block out, hey, we need water. Unfortunately, you need to educate these people. Firefighters are easy to educate most of the time if you explain the why, right, PJ? But sometimes when you deal with administrators, they just don't get it, and that's the guy you got to take and bring into the flashover container. Or you got, put some gear on. Raise that 35-foot ladder by yourself,
That the chief of operations did have the wherewithal, who was command outside. He immediately got on the radio and said, all transmissions go through command to try to get it under control before it started to get further along. Because when you ask for the Red Cross, communications then comes back and says, how many people do you have? What do they need? Because communications is, so now you're taking up the air, and you can miss the mayday. You can miss that division chief giving a critical communication to command. Somebody could get injured or killed. Would you agree with that assessment?
Oh, absolutely. That should never be on a tactical channel. As a matter of fact, in North Hudson, we got 1 channel. So what we try to tell them to do, and this is a lot, maybe a lot of departments, I don't know, but you're coming out of quarters, a mile and a half away from the fire, and you're coming in on a second alarm, or even, all right, maybe second alarm, later arriving first alarm companies. But you think the air is clear. So you decide to get on the radio and say, Engine 9 is coming in, we have 3 guys, and there's a dog near us, and what's your pleasure? And, it's just nonsense. And what's happening is you're on the mobile, which is 25 watts, and there's a guy in a fireground with a 5-watt portable trying to call for water or call a mayday. You don't hear him where you are, so you think the air is clear. That drives me crazy. That drove me nuts. So our thing in North Hudson was, look, if there is an alarm out, and you don't have anything and you're not on that alarm, or even if you are and you're not on the fire ground yet, stay off the air. Stay off the air. Wait till you get onto the fire ground, because we only ran with 1 channel there, and I think they still only run with 1 channel. But yeah, all these things, all these things you can sort of troubleshoot these in that nothing showing environment. You know, and you talked about how that sort of, it's like petri dish. It's a petri dish. If you allow that petri dish to become contaminated when there's nothing showing or in your training area and that sort of thing, well, it's only going to grow bad stuff, and somebody's going to get poisoned out of it, you know? So it's, you got to keep the petri dish clean by, you know, paying attention. And again, that united front is so important because, you know, you ever see you have one chief, and you guys might have been in that position, you got one chief, or you sometimes think you're the only guy that is really like pushing for something strong, and everybody else is like, don't really care. You know, that's very difficult. But once you start to get people to like sort of, you know, work, you know, as a team and towards a common goal, everything starts to fall into place. And then what you have to do is you have to remember there are perimeter people, not only in mutual aid, but your administrators and that. And those perimeter people have to be part of that plan too. We often forget them.
Well, I think right. With the way we do incident command, we've now realized, and it was slow to catch on, and we're getting much better at it. But when individuals took your class, you know, you could hear them saying, "Well, we're going to be talking on the radio so much." And ironically, what's happened is now with division officers, and PJ, you can talk to this because you used to hear our radio transmissions before and after. There's actual less communication. Sure. On the radio, where I'd say this, before we had a lot of talking, we didn't have a lot of communicating, and now we have a lot of communicating, but we're not talking as much. So yes, it really works, and you did a great job in New Haven with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been listening to New Haven's Fires being the neighboring community since I was a kid, and the difference now between what the training school has done and what Chief Maccarelli, the Assistant Chief Operations, has done, working with their officers. It's really, really good. And Chief, with the education that you did up here, be proud that they've taken a lot of those lessons and they're using them, and they've really come a long way. And you could tell that their firegrounds are much calmer, a little bit smoother. They're still meeting the goals, but it sounds much better on the radio, so I can only imagine how much better their fireground is actually operating when they actually have, like Frank said, communications going on and not just talking.
Right, but you guys are progressive, and I see Connecticut as being, what I've seen there, it's a progressive place, and people want to do the right things, and once they figure out, hey, man, this works a little bit, they come around. Listen, it took us in North Hudson 15, 16 years to get to where we are now, and I'm just saying that because we've been regionalized since 1999, so what's that, 17 years, right? So, I'm not sure where they are now. I know they're still, pretty much in that place, but it took us 15 years to get there, and it takes time. And we do a lot of mutual aid with Jersey City and with Hoboken and Bayonne, and they use the same systems because we've been doing it for so long now that it's second nature, but I see one of the biggest problems I see when I go teaching outside is, our fireground's good, we're kind of getting this, but mutual aid, additional people coming in, how do we handle that? And I said, well, how do you handle that? You meet with them, you talk about it. You say, look, let's have a drill, and you don't even have to have, you could do a drill and just stick people in buildings. You don't need tools, you don't need anything else, and just keep running people in and out of the buildings, and with communication, there's your drill, And but I got to say, and just on another little side, how cool was it to talk to Brunacini in Tulsa? I mean, I never really talked to him that much, but I mean, we sat there with him at breakfast, and like everything that comes out of his mouth, first of all, he knows the answer, so you're afraid to even answer him, but he just, what a great guy, so humble, and he was talking about like the nozzle forward, and he goes, what, the only thing ahead of the nozzle is the fire. He goes, why would we want to be ahead of the nozzle? He goes, anything ahead of the nozzle is not necessarily a really good thing. He goes, the only thing ahead of it is the fire. It's like, and he's got such this sort of like matter-of-fact sort of like, it's so obvious type of demeanor, it's no wonder he's just like a god.
And he doesn't say much.
No.
But when he does, man, what an impact it has. One word here, he just drops those one-liners out, or those one sentences. Yes. It was amazing. What a great experience to sit and actually have conversations with him. Not sit in a classroom, sit around a table and, eat a meal and just listen to him speak. It was
it was really good.
92 when I was going to Harvard on the Pike, Montgomery College, where Brennan taught.
Yep.
What do you call it? That was the book, the Fire Command book. Ted Jarba,
Yeah.
who was friends with Brunacini, that was like I think one of the staples of that class. And to be able to spend some time with them and have a cup of coffee was the guy's like, he's got so many words of wisdom, and it's just a hat for him. He gets it.
I used his book for the captain's test.
Yeah.
Those are like the Aviloisms.
Yeah, but the Brunacini-isms, man, I used this book for the captain's test, and I still have it, but it's held together with rubber bands now, and it's highlighted in circles and arrows and notes all over it. I didn't know he was going to be there. I should have bought it to let him sign it. He would have looked at it and said, "What the hell did you do with this thing?" Because it's just so well. His book, Norman's book, there's just so much. I just used the crap out of that book, and it just guided my career. You talk about mentors and things like that.
We all like we had a quote in that back of the Fire Command book, and I still remember from college. He said, "You can fool the spectators, but you can't fool the players."
That's right.
I've always remembered that because I see a lot of politicians fooled, and you can't fool the people that are in the game.
No, and you take that one step further. Flood had said you can fool your superiors most of the time, but you can only fool your subordinates once.
Oh, I like that.
Nice.
I like.
And then you lose your credibility.
Well, speaking of that, you have a new leadership book coming out too. Like I said, you retired to spend more time on the fire department. What do you call it? Did Flood write that with you, or influenced by Flood?
Ed Flood was my mentor. He was my captain. He was my battalion. He was always one rank ahead of me. And nobody in the fire service, no one gets the leadership, management, nobody gets it like this guy. Nobody. And it's not because he was my mentor. It's just because I've seen a lot of people that have claimed to get it. And a lot of people do get it, but nobody gets it like him. This leadership book is going to be called Full Contact Leadership. And you guys have read a little bit of it. It's different. It is a different book. It's Fire Engineering has it now, and even the feedback I've been getting from them is you were right, that this is a very special book, a very different book. And started writing it because Flood didn't want to write it, and I wrote about 20 chapters, and I gave it to him, and I said, well, I need you to read this because I need your blessing to put this out. And he starts reading, and he goes, I don't know how people read your shit. You can't write. Yeah. So something happened, and he sort of got motivated, and he started writing. He wrote for like 8 months straight. And the book is done now. There's a lot of, chapters are relatively short, but they are very jam-packed. There is no fat. And it's interesting because Marla said, he writes in a very interesting way. It's very rare to get someone to write the way he writes. He goes, he almost edits everything down to a point of bare bones. And this book is, you guys have read little pieces of it. It is definitely. I'm more excited about this book than any strategy book I ever wrote, because I think this book will rock some people's worlds. In fact, the foreword was written by Tommy Von Essen. And, he said to me, he's a professor here at the university, and he said, listen, I might not be the guy you want to do this. And he says, because there are a lot of people out there that, don't really get my philosophy. I said, that's exactly why I want you to write the foreword. And he read the book, and he said, boy, you guys open up a lot of doors people want to keep closed. And he was very, very supportive and very on board with it, as was Professor Kevin Maui, who wrote the foreword to the Strategies book. Real solid guys. And, we're real proud that he's part of that book. And you guys are in the book. I got your pictures in there. And, it's all good, man. It is all good. It's all good. So I think where you guys are in the book, we talk about paying it forward. I don't know if that's the exact term, but it's something similar to that. Flood always throws a twist on the words that actually makes it sound even more like what you mean. So it's good.
I definitely look forward to seeing it come out. Hopefully it'll be out for FDIC this year. That's Full Contact.
Yeah.
Good. So hopefully we'll launch that in April. I'd like to make a quick mention of our sponsor, Tincata Fabrics, for the show. Without the support of Fire Engineering and Chief Halton, and Shannon, who's in the background here, keeping the show up and running. We couldn't do this, but without the sponsorship of Tenkata, we could not continue these shows each and every month. So for Tenkata Fabrics, thank you very much for your continued support. And we ask that if you're listening today, if you're watching, whether you're watching live or from the archives, check out Tenkata Fabrics. Go to the website, see what they have to offer. They have tons of information, tons of resources, and a lot of education available for all of us on our turnout gear and what we're actually wearing. You know, we say it all the time. If you find a police officer and you ask him or her what their bulletproof vest will stop as far as ammunitions, they'll tell you. Go to a firefighter. Ask them what their turnout gear will protect them from. 9 out of 10 firefighters have no idea what the DHL of their gear is and how long it will actually protect them in these volatile environments. So we encourage you to go to Tenkata Fabrics, research what you're wearing, look at your turnout gear, and know what you're protected from, and know what you're not protected from. And it all comes back to Tenkata Fabrics and their support they give to us. So thank you very much.
And it's not about the color of your gear. You got to look at the spec.
Yeah.
I went through quite the education with Tenkata and Globe and Morning Pride, and you know, I couldn't believe how much went into the gear spec and how firefighters in Arizona wear something totally different, meets the standard, than what firefighters in New England wear. So there's a wide range, and when you're ordering gear, you know, if you want the best thermal protection, then you got more heat loss so that it's more stress on the firefighter. So it's really a balancing act when speccing out your gear. It's not just one spec for everybody. So make sure you reach out to people who know, to Tenkata Fabrics, and get the right information.
You know, we use their services. We use them to do an assessment. You know, what do we truly actually need in our department? The Union Safety Committee took this and met with Tenkata. They have a representative come up to Connecticut and met with them. Says, what do we actually need? And they did an assessment of what type of fires we're fighting, the environments that we're in, the atmosphere, you know, the ambient out temperatures have a play. What we need here in Connecticut is very different what they may need in Phoenix, Arizona. So look up Tenkata Fabrics, learn as much as you can about your gear, and let them help you decide what you need. Then worry about the manufacturers. It's not just about price and about color. It's about making sure you put your membership in the protective clothing that they actually need.
Chief, as a new training director, what do you see as your biggest challenge with this new fire academy? Because if you're experiencing it, everybody around the country's experiencing it. Maybe we can learn from you.
Well, right now we're just getting Firefighter 1 off the ground. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Right now we're just getting Firefighter 1 off the ground, and we run 2 classes to that. And, you know, I'm trying to just get my feet on the ground this semester. And the next semester we have a $2.6 million burn building going up. We're going to get a flashover simulator, I believe. And so we're going to start to expand and branch out. And, you know, I want to get a Fire 2 class going because we haven't done that in a while. We want to get back into RIC operations and confined space and all of the technical ops. We were doing that. We had a guy. You guys know Tommy Gavin from Paratech?
I do not.
You know? Okay. Well, he's a big. He was one of our instructors, and he really, I mean, he does all and he was really knew the stuff cold, but he left the academy. So we're hiring some guys that do know this stuff now. So we want to get back into all of that. What I want to do is I want to start sort of getting departments to do mutual aid drills. Like we'll do a smokehouse drill, you know, and they come in at like a drill ground. They will, you know, light some fires and stuff for them. But with these new buildings now, we're gonna have 2 burn buildings. I'd like to get like mutual aid groups to come in and like let one group start fighting a fire and call for the mutual aid, bring them in and use division command. You know, I kind of have this sort of view of that.
That's great. A lot of departments go for mutual aid, but they don't train through mutual aid companies, which makes no sense.
No, I mean, who fights a fire without mutual aid these days? You know, mostly everybody, especially in these smaller areas. You know, another thing I want to do is we're going to try and run with the Firefighter 1. At the end of Firefighter 1, we do a thing called putting it all together, and it's sort of like a rolling response day, and we do it over 2 weeks. And what I want to do is I want to run alongside that a short street operations command course, and then take those students and bring them out into the field the day we do putting it all together, and let them run the operations you know what I mean, and be the division commanders and do all the communications while the firefighter one students are all going through their paces with their squads and companies. I think it's really interesting. I don't know if I'm going to do it this semester, but I kind of got it thinking about putting it together for like next semester. One of the other things that we're doing now is every class, well, we do Tuesday, Saturday, and Thursday, Sunday. So there's 2 classes run at once. We are giving them this sort of questionnaire every Tuesday, and they got to bring it back Saturday. And what it's doing is it's pushing them into their department. For instance, we just gave them one last week, and we want an inventory of the apparatus that they ride on. The next week, we're going to be doing, I think, SCBA. So we're going to know, you know, what type of SABA do you have? Where do you go for spare bottles? Where's the compressor kept? How much, you know, so what we want them to do is go ask questions on their department, go into the compartments, like touch everything. Because what we find is, you know, I'll go to the class and I'll say, how many people were in a firehouse today? And most of the hands go up. How many people actually opened compartments? Not that many hands went up. So what we're trying to do is get them not only get them engaged at the fire academy, but get them and their offices engaged in their firehouses. You know, so this is sort of a pilot that we're running, and each week we're just building it as we go. So I think it's going to be really cool. I think it's going to help them a lot, and I think it's going to let the departments know that the academy is like, you know, sort of branching. We're almost like reaching into their department with our Firefighter One program, even though we're running it at our academy. You know, so we're looking to do more field things, and you know, listen, I just want to leave the place better than I found it.
Well, I'm sure you will. The only thing I would encourage you to do is get on the same page before you start these classes as far as terminology. I think as the fire service as a whole, we're all over the place as far as terminology. You know, a little pet peeve I have, you know, and you mentioned, is a flashover simulator. We train these firefighters, these brand new recruits that have never been in a job before. We teach them the definitions of flashover, then we bring them into a flashover simulator, and they're really only seeing flame over and rollover, and then they think they survived a flashover. You know, so it's just things like that. Or we bring them into these Class A burn buildings. We tell them to vent the building. They open up the windows, they open up the roof, and everything gets better. And that's really not what happens on the fire.
That's not what happens.
So I think that we set some of our recruits up with little things that way. That way we've always been doing it. That if we just tweak things just a little bit, we can actually set them up for success on the fire ground. And a lot of that comes from just our terminology with flashover and ventilation. And when we start educating them to have a positive success in the fire ground then versus setting them up for failure.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're
right.
It's very important that police and fire work together. So the union president from the police just came in. So we're going to.
There you go.
You
know what? Be safe out there.
He's blocking a hydrant out front too. So I'm going to talk to him.
You know why? That's because he wants to be a firefighter.
No, he's not like our emergency director.
You know. Well, listen. You know, cops are just firemen and didn't pass the test. You know. We had a FEMA. What?
They need heroes too.
Absolutely. We had a FEMA conference here, and it was military, and like just this, you know, huge, wide swath of people from all different agencies and stuff. And I got a chance to speak to them at the end, and I said, I see there's a lot of military here. You know, thank you for your service, those of you who are still in, and those who have served. And I said, I also see a lot of firefighters here. And then the last thing I said was, I guess everybody else here just wants to be firefighters. You know, and it was like one of those, yeah.
And for those police officers that are watching, that are friends of ours, that are also, you know, two-hatters, and a lot of police officers that are volunteers. I always say that I could never be a cop, never want to be a police officer, because everything that they do is unpredictable. You know, something as simple as a traffic stop, you have no idea what that person behind the wheel is going to do. But then I bring that back to our training. I look at it, everything that we do is predictable. If you study and learn your building construction, you study and learn your fire behavior, and if you're actually step back from the fire and you're watching, you're looking at the building construction, you're watching the fire behavior, you could predict what's going to happen. So our job is much more predictable.
To some degree.
You know, when you take, for some degree, absolutely. Yeah. With, you know, not 100%, but you know, I think a lot of times you see the National Line of Duty Death Reports talk about this rapid fire involvement. Yeah, there was rapid fire, but it was probably missed. It may not have been as rapid as it portrays, just somebody didn't see it progressing to that point.
Or maybe they caused it.
Or maybe they caused it. Or
they
maybe
might have caused it.
In a department like mine, Chief, we because of our staffing, the incident commander very often ends up having to stop and put hand on task, help get involved in the operations.
Yeah.
And that really screws the pooch because he or she can't watch everything that's going on, and they miss things. And not because they missed it because they're doing something wrong. They're doing what they need to do to make a successful fireground.
Oh, exactly, exactly. You know, one of the things I found, you know, go back to the incident command system, one of the things I found to be one of the most effective and efficient ways to keep the people where you want them to be. You know, obviously you have your division, things like that. You know, when you go, I'd send you to go to the Delta Division, that's where you're going. But you know where we lose everybody is in rehab. Once they come back to the command post and they go to rehab, if you're not managing that rehab, you never are able to get them back. So, you know, you wind up having to strike additional alarms because you don't have people. You know, so one of the lessons we learned from one of these really big fires we had was to make our rehab command post friendly. And what I mean by that is make it in a place that is conducive to when they leave rehab, they almost have to go to past the command post to get back to the buildings. You know, because that's one of the problems we had at this one big fire. They kept striking alarms. They didn't need alarms, but they never had rehab set up. So when guys come out of the building, if they don't come to the command post and they go get the bottles changed, generally they get the bottle changed, they go back in the building, or so you lost them already. Yep. So the idea is anytime you change your status from operating, staged, or rehab, it has to go through the command post. But if you can control that rehab, it makes your ability to shuffle people in and out and rotate them through and all that, it makes it so much easier. That was one of the things that we learned at one of our fires. And when I had that second Rock Harbor fire, which I talk about in the book, it was flawless. I had over 150 guys on a fireground. We had flawless accountability, flawless command structure, and because we were able to set the, you know, we had all those accountability things in place already, but we were able to make the rehab division command post friendly in a way, or access friendly. So whether you got to put cones there or something, or whatever it happens to be, it's a huge key to controlling the fireground, because you can control what's going on in the buildings to a good degree, but when the people are not in the buildings, that's when you have the problem controlling them, because when you need somebody, they're not, you know, it's just made a real lot of sense to me, and I talk about it in the book. But it was probably the biggest lesson I ever learned. I learned in a latter part of my career. You know.
Well, it didn't happen overnight. You weren't successful at that fire because you read it in a book. You were successful at that fire because you practiced it, you learned what worked, you learned what didn't work, and you modified it to work. And that's great. And that just goes to the years of experience and trial and error. You know, the first time you ran an incident, it probably didn't run so well. You know what I mean? We'll make mistakes as we go, and the important part is to learn from your mistakes. And I like that idea. You know, I wrote a very short article that was published in Fire Engineering last month on rehab. I think we don't pay enough attention to that. You know, like in my department, it almost like rehab equals released. You know, you're sending them to rehab, okay, we're done with you. No, that's not the case. We don't have enough of you. You know, we're sending you to rehab to get you hydrated, make sure you're okay, change your bottle, and we got to put you back to work. So rehab doesn't equal release. It doesn't mean go get lost. You almost have to have an accountability officer and that somebody running rehab so we don't lose the members and they don't take that as the opportunity to go get lost because we need to put it back to work.
But again, you know, and those are expectations that have to be set. You know, if you think that's going to happen on your fireground, you've never talked about it, or you've never talked with your mutual aid, like, you know, you might as well just stick your head in the sand, you know, because it's not going to happen unless you talk about it, you live it, you practice it, and it takes time, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of diligence on the part of you know, the supervisors to do those kind of things. You know, supervision is work. You know, it's work. And if you're not willing to do that work, then you know, you're not going to have a very disciplined operation. It's just never going to be that way. That, you know, people wonder why are our firegrounds so out of control? Well, you know why? Because you don't give it enough lip time when you're not on the fireground. You know, you just think it's going to, and then the other end of it is once the fire's out, hey, it went out, and you listen, we're undefeated. You know, all fires go out. So because all fires go out, we're not often held accountable for really what happens on the fireground, and not even by ourselves.
Yes.
You know, and that's, oh, fire went out, a couple of high fives, it's over. But you know what? You almost got 3 guys killed. You know, you damaged an exposure. The rig got broken. You know, somebody ran out of air. Why do all these things happen? If you're not addressing them, they're going to happen again, and you never know when a joker pops out of the deck, because that's where, when you talk about the predictability and all that, yes, you're absolutely right. But every now and then, and Bobby Holton said this, the joker pops out of the deck, and the consequences are not at random.
Yeah, but and what I would is, if you're not paying attention and you're not watching what's going on, when that joker jumps out of the deck, you're not going to have the opportunity to grab it and put it back in its place. And once that joker's out of the deck, and if you don't control it right away or as quick as you can, it's going to run rampant, and somebody's going to get hurt, somebody's going to get killed, or you're going to burn the building down.
Exactly, and you got to plan for the joke. Well, it's hard to plan for the jokers, but if you're thinking along those lines, well, what could have gone wrong here? Like, how could we make this a little bit better? Like your sorts, you always got to be thinking. You always got to be sort of looking at those potentials. And I know you're the same way. You always look, and you guys don't have the staffing that we have. And so and I worked in a department before we regionalized in Weehawken, we had 10 guys on the fireground. So I understand that end of it. We relied on a lot of mutual aid from the towns that eventually became North Hudson Regional. But it's a different dynamic when you don't have enough guys. It really is, and it's a little bit different to manage. But the idea, I think, is get people there and have them all on the same page. Well, now, who do you guys do mutual aid with? Obviously, New Haven, right?
Yeah, depending on our town we're in, either New Haven or Brantford. We find Brantford sometimes easier, except which is another small combination department like ours, because New Haven's charter is a little bit different when it comes to sending resources outside of the city limits. They have to go through a certain chain to release those companies to outside the city limits, and that's charter. It has nothing to do with any of the members of the department that are currently there, but there's this process that it has to go through to keep them in line with the city charter, which at times is a little time-consuming. It may take 2, 3, 4 minutes, sometimes longer. However, we would prefer to utilize New Haven because we're getting a 4-man truck company, we're getting a 4-man engine company, we're getting command officers. Where in Brantford, it's a small combination department, and they may be out, they may be on other runs, they may have other stuff going on. Right. So it's that balance on where we are and what we actually need at that moment of who we're going to call.
Now, Brantford, that was the place where they had that garage fire. You sent me the pictures where they had the door closed, and the garage was almost completely destroyed, and the door on the other side only was a little singed at the top. That was a really interesting picture.
Yeah. That was actually North Brantford, which is a small another department that's north of us. That's all volunteer department. But we're all very, very, very small departments. We can all become one regional department, and we would still not be the size of yours. But
not such a bad idea, by the way.
No, I don't think I'll ever see it in my time here, but at some point it would be nice to come back to the area and see that it accomplished.
I see a director job in your future, the director of the regional, what would they call that? Greater New Haven?
I probably can't say what it should be called live on air. So, Chief, we got only a couple minutes left. We're getting down to that hour, but we have a ton of comments today. No real questions, but I'd like to give a shout-out to Sonny O'Connor. He's listening today and made a couple good comments. Mark G. from Providence Fire, thank you for listening, brother. He says he just bought your book. Just
Thanks,
ordered
Mark.
So he's listening. Anthony Carrera from New Jersey, he commented in there regarding Rehab should have a plan, talking about, so we had some good comments today, and Sonny O'Connor talking about, training for the search and using the loaf of bread.
Yeah, I saw that. That's interesting.
That's some good stuff, man. Simple little things that we can do to make the training fun, make the training a little bit different, but also to make it relevant for the fireground. So that's some good stuff. So thank you for all those that comment, and that's just a few of the comments we've had today. Try to give a shout out to some of those. But for those of you that are listening, we really appreciate you giving us our time today. It's always a pleasure to sit back and hang out with Chief Avilo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frank Ritchie, he abandoned me with a police officer. Hopefully he doesn't come out of his office in handcuffs or something. But he let
Might not be the first time.
I'm not going there. But Chief, we really appreciate it. But you have this new book coming out, Full Contact Leadership, but you also have your Fireground Strategies, the latest edition. take 30 seconds, give another plug for each one of those books, and when we could predict to see those, and then it's all yours. To have the last, the floor is yours to close out the show today.
Thanks, brother. Yeah. Well, the strategies book is out. The workbook should be out hopefully by September. I'm just looking at the final galleys now. It's just about done. The full contact leadership, the book I'm really looking forward to. I'm hoping to be out by the FDIC. Not too many pictures in it. We didn't have any actually, and they asked us to put pictures in it, so we scrambled around looking for pictures, and we found some because we're firefighters, we like pictures. So that should be out in April. I've just been approved for the big, not the big room session, the pre-conference workshop, Man Control and Accountability. I'm going to be doing that at the FDIC in 2017. And just lastly, just there's a project that's been running in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut over the past few years. It's called the Sandy Ground Project, and it was put together by a bunch of firefighters from New Jersey. It started out with Hurricane Katrina. They went and built playgrounds for the schools that were destroyed, and then when Hurricane Sandy hit, the idea sort of came back, but it was floundering around until the Newtown tragedy occurred. And the idea was they built 26 playgrounds in the memory of the 26 victims in 26 cities in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. And there's a new book out called, I'll show it right here. It's called Where Angels Live, Work, and Play. It's the story of the Sandy Ground Project. It's interestingly enough, the book is $26, but the entire book goes to charity. It's written by a guy named Billy Lavin. Billy Lavin was the president of the New Jersey FMBA, and these builds, these playground builds for these angels, changed his life. And I was on a plane the other day reading this book, and I was like hiding my face because I was tearing up. It's such a great inspirational book, and you can get it at whereangelsplayfoundation.org. Whereangelsplayfoundation.org. Every single dollar goes to new playground builds, and all the playgrounds are in places that have been hit by storms that need playgrounds. It's just it's a tremendous book. I'm reading it now, and I'm just humbled at the people that were involved in it. Not only them, but the families of the victims in Newtown, and just tremendous. And so you got an extra $26 laying around. I think it's a great book to have. I'm planning on buying more and giving them some gifts because it's just a story that needs to be told, and it really has a lot to do with the human spirit, and again also what we're all about as firefighters. Giving back, and it's just a great book. So shout out for that, and listen, I cherish and love the friendship I have with you guys from Connecticut. It's like I said, you guys have rekindled my spirit for the job, and thank you guys for that. And please tell Pep that we're all pulling for him.
I will, Chief. We're going down to see him as soon as we're done here today. But the Sandy Ground Project is a great project, and thank goodness I wasn't directly impacted by the tragedy in Sandy Hook. However, I personally know responders that were there that day. I have a guy in my job in East Haven who was very close to the family that lost a child on that. So it is far and deep the impact that incident had across the entire New England area. So I'm going to check this book out, Where Angels Live, Work, and Play. Where Angels Work, Live, and Play, foundation.org. $26. 26 children were lost in Sandy Hook. That's less than 10 cups of coffee. And there's not too many of us that we won't think twice on grabbing a cup of coffee or 2-3 cups of coffee a day.
Exactly, and they're always looking for people to help build the playgrounds.
And we're getting over our time, but I'll tell you, for those that don't know, I'm not involved in that. But my wife and I started a project many years ago at my daughter's elementary school, and we built a playground because they had nowhere to play.
Nice.
One of the most rewarding things I've ever done. No fire, no EMS, no rescue, nothing compared to how rewarding it felt when we showed up there at the beginning of the day and had just a piece of grass. We left at night, kids coming down the slides and climbing the obstacles, and that was for a small elementary school. So I can't imagine how important and how rewarding it is for the members that are in the standing ground project. So I'd encourage you to look them up. And
Goosebumps, bro. I have goosebumps.
Things they do. I know. It's the little things about giving back. So, Chief, congratulations on FDIC again. I really look forward to seeing you there. Hopefully, we won't have to wait till April to see you. For those of you that submitted FDIC, as we all know, a lot of the letters, acceptance and some rejection letters came out yesterday, and it's always a good time, but also for some of you, not so good time. And that's a hard piece. That's a hard part for me. I know, Chief, that's a hard part for you because we're part of the group that grades and scores and evaluates. But I'm just going to keep telling you, if you got that rejection letter, we all have gotten those rejection letters.
Yes, we have.
None of us have gotten to FDIC on our first time through. Keep writing. Get on the fire engineering training community. Write some articles for online publication. Write some articles for the magazine publication. Get your message out there. Take your class that you want to teach at FDIC, and if you were rejected this year, make it better. Get out to the local departments. Get out to the volunteer departments who have a drill night multiple nights a month. And they're always looking for guest instructors and really hone in your program, your presentation, and it will come. If you keep working, if you keep pushing, it will come. And I'm going to throw Frank Rich into the bus, myself, and also Chief Avilo. If you need some help, you need some guidance, reach out to us. Ask us for help. I wouldn't be sitting here today without what Frank has done for me, what Chief Halton has done for me, what Chief Avilo. They brought me along. This year I had the pleasure of helping out a couple young up-and-comers, and they got selected for FDIC this year. So, I'm bring some of them up. So we want to help you. So if you have any issues or questions, find us, reach out to us, social media, email, and ask us. We're more than willing to help you. So we thank you for watching today. The last plug of the day is for Tincata Fabrics. Our friends down there in Tincata, I know we spoke a lot about them today, and we can't speak enough about Tincata for everything that they do for us. Shannon's putting up the slide there with their website and their information. So please check them out, support them, and please, again, say a few prayers for our buddy Chris Pepler. He needs us behind him right now. And Chris, hopefully you're watching. We're with you, brother, and you know that we're with you. And today is another day that's almost over. Another day closer to recovery. Another day closer to be home with your family. So we love you, brother, and we're going to see you in a few minutes. So better pep up, Pepler. Chief, last word, Chief, and we're going to close the show out.
Listen, thank you guys for having me. It was excellent experience, and I always love to talk fire, especially with you guys, because you guys get it. You guys get it, and everybody just be safe out there, and you know where to find us if you need us. We're always willing to help anybody.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Chief. Shannon, thank you. Chief Fulton, thank you. Fire Engineering, Tincata Fabrics, Frank Ritchie, who banded us for a meeting in the other room. We thank him also. We'll see you next month, the fourth Wednesday of the month, 1 o'clock Eastern. We have another good show lined up already. We'll get those details out within the next couple of weeks. So we look forward to seeing you, everybody, again, chatting through the FE Talk hashtag. And don't forget, we're not the only show. Every Wednesday, Fire Engineering runs these Google Hangouts, all found underneath the same hashtag FE Talk. So join in, ask questions, and just be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So thanks, everybody. Be safe.